Welcome to SkedLIVE. It's Thursday, March 10th. I'm Mehek Mazhar. This is what's making news now. Prime Minister Trudeau is in D.C. for the White House State Dinner. Trudeau is the first Canadian Prime Minister to have been invited since 1997. In Obama's words, it's about time, eh? Trudeau kicked off his 3-day visit to the capital with an outdoor press conference alongside Obama. They talked about the similarities between Canada and the U.S., and viewers also saw the striking similarities between these world leaders. They joked about the Stanley Cup. Obama called the Canadian delegation quite good-looking, and they said our diversity in these two countries is our strength. But moving from looks to politics, Trudeau and Obama have agreed to work together to fight climate change and cut methane emissions from the oil and gas industries. Trudeau's schedule for the day includes meetings with U.S. leaders and more photo ops. Speaking of photo ops, Sophie Gregoire Trudeau and Michelle Obama had one earlier today when they attended a program to honor girls' education around the world. We'll have more updates on the Trudeaus tonight on Twitter at our handle SkedLine as they attend the state dinner. Now, for a quick recap of the U.S. presidential race. Bernie Sanders pulled off an upset in Michigan on Tuesday, dealing a crushing blow to Hillary Clinton in an important state where he had trailed in recent polls. Trump won with 38%. Clinton took Mississippi with more than 80% of the vote. On the Republican side, Donald Trump racked up 3 more victories, and Ted Cruz won in Idaho. Let's go to Eric now to see what's happening in sports.
Thanks, Mehek. The Humber Hawks women's volleyball team is in Prince Edward Island for the 2016 CCAA National Championship today. The 2nd seed Hawks take on the 7th seed Mount St. Vincent University Mystics in the first game of the tournament at 11 a.m. The Hawks are the lone team from Ontario at the tournament after an undefeated season where they steamrolled the rest of the OCAA. The winner of today's game between the Hawks and Mystics move on to play the winner between the 3rd seed Briarcrest Clippers and the 6th seed Vancouver Island University Mariners. The Leafs played host to the New York Islanders last night and secured 2 points in a come-from-behind shootout win. On Saturday, the Leafs head up the 401 to suit up against their former captain for the 2nd time since Phaneuf was traded to the Sens. Around the NHL, the Flames edged the Predators 3-2 in Calgary last night, and the Vancouver Canucks held on for a 3-2 win against the Arizona Coyotes. In the NBA, the Raptors are looking for their 43rd regular season win at the ACC tonight against the Atlanta Hawks. The Hawks are looking to avenge a 10-point loss from back in December. Last night, the Cleveland Cavaliers continued their dominant season with a 120-111 win over the Sacramento Kings. Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors stayed perfect at home, crushing the Utah Jazz 115-94, and the OKC Thunder demolished the LA Clippers 120-108. Kevin Durant chipped in with 30 points. In Blue Jays news, the Birds take on the New York Yankees in training camp action today in Tampa. So far, the Jays have had an excellent showing this training camp, posting a 7-1-1 record. And finally, today, President Obama joked with Prime Minister Trudeau that Americans and Canadians will never agree who is better at hockey. Obama reminded Trudeau that our Stanley Cup is currently in Chicago, his hometown. Yes, Mr. President, the Stanley Cup is in Chicago. You should say thank you to your team's Canadian captain, 2 Canadian assistant captains, the Canadian goalie, and Canadian coach. That's all for sports. Back to news with Mehek.
Thanks, Eric. While our Prime Minister is south of the border, there are more serious issues at home. In Manitoba, the Cross Lake First Nation has declared a state of emergency due to suicides and suicide attempts over the last few weeks. Officials say health workers on the Northern Reserve can no longer cope with their 24-hour shifts. The community is seeking help from provincial and federal governments. The ministers from Aboriginal Affairs and Indigenous Affairs said they are doing what they can to assist the community in this difficult time. The Ontario government is backtracking on its once tolerant view of smoking up public places. This is a major policy U-turn. The controversial anti-toking and anti-vaping measures were approved by Premier Kathleen Wynne her cabinet on Wednesday afternoon. It will ban vaping and smoking of medical marijuana in all enclosed public places, workplaces, and a number of outdoor areas. Associate Health Minister Deepika Demirla is expected to outline the changes later today. Now for an update on elections here on campus. SkedLIVE went to ask you, the students, for your thoughts.
It's election week here at Humber College, and the campus is covered with campaign posters. Candidates are running for president, the board of directors, vice president of student affairs, and vice president of student life. With their posters, candidates hope to win the votes of students. We're going to talk to students to see how successful these posters are at gaining their attention.
Okay, so I'm a first-year student, so it's my first time having this experience. And so far, I think that everyone has really brought out their spirits, and they showed me who they were. A couple of them I did voted for because of the posters, and I think that it really influenced me a lot because I got to see who they are as a candidate. I think that the persons I vote for, they will do a pretty good job, so I'm pretty excited to see them win. Yeah.
I feel like a lot of them were similar, like just picture in the middle, square framing.
I think it's a little overwhelming that it might be overkill with so many. It sort of loses the message somewhere along the line.
It was more when they came to the table, especially at lunch. That's more what influenced it, and talking to them and seeing what they were really about.
The voting period began March 7th, and the winners will be announced tomorrow. This is Rachel Clemens, skedline.com.
Thanks, Mehek. Earlier this week, room star Jacob Tremblay spent the day at work with his dad. Tremblay's father is a police officer in Vancouver, British Columbia. The 9-year-old documented their adorable day together on Instagram, saying, "I always bring my dad to work, but today I went to his." The Vancouver Police Department also shared a snap of Tremblay and his father eating Tim Hortons donuts with other fellow officers. Sir George Martin, otherwise known as the fifth Beatle, has died at the age of 90. The music industry legend passed on Tuesday in his home in Wiltshire, England. Martin was known for shaping the British pop band The Beatles. The five would go on to become one of the world's most influential music forces. Martin is considered one of the most successful music producers of all time. He's cited in the Guinness Book of Records for having more than 50 #1 hits over 5 decades in the US and Britain alone. Paris Fashion Week came and went with a bang. Fashion luxury label Louis Vuitton wrapped up the 9-day parade of haute couture designers yesterday. On a catwalk spiked with mirror columns, Vuitton's head designer, Nicolas Guesquière, presented a dark, futuristic collection offering plenty of leather and metal accents. In the front row were A-listers and fashion icons Alicia Vikander, Jennifer Connelly, and Selena Gomez, among a number of familiar faces. Following Vuitton were designers Miu Miu and Miuccia Prada. Toronto Fashion Week starts on Monday, March 14th. That's all for your entertainment update. Back to you, Mehek.
Thanks, Rachel, and thanks, Lauren. After welcoming hundreds of thousands of refugees, Europe is closing its borders. At least 3 nations along the migrant routes, Serbia, Slovenia, and Croatia, blocking all migrants from passing without European visas. This means no entry for asylum seekers from war zones such as Syria and Iraq. Thousands still wait, stranding at the Greek-Macedonian border. Nobody has crossed through this border since early Monday morning. European Union leaders held a summit with Turkey with hopes to reach a possible deal with Ankara to return remaining migrants, and said they were confident a full agreement could be reached at a summit next week. A district court in Japan ordered a nuclear plant to stop operations on Wednesday. This is the first time an injunction has been issued to halt an operational nuclear reactor. The order was granted after residents in the area filed a complaint with the court. This comes just 1 day before the 5-year anniversary of the Tohoku earthquake that triggered the Fukushima nuclear disaster. Takahama Nuclear Plant No. 3 reactor is one of 2 nuclear reactors running under new safety standards adopted by the government after the 2011 Fukushima nuclear incident. The No. 3 reactor had just restarted operations in January and is the 2nd reactor at the Takahama plant to suspend operations in 2 months. Myanmar's National League for Democracy proposed a close friend of Nobel laureate Aung San Suu Kyi as its presidential candidate. This ends a 4-month wait for the identity of the president who is expected to rule in her name. The NLD nominated Tin Cha, who joined the party just 2 months ago. The party's crushing majority makes Cha a near certain to become the head of the country's first democratically elected government since the army seized power in 1962. The full parliament votes next week. Let's go to weather now.
Thanks, Mehek. Here's your 5-day forecast. Tomorrow will reach a high of 9 with sun and clouds and a low of 1. Heading into the weekend, temperatures will rise to a high of 16 and a low of 3 with sun, perfect for a hike or a jog. Sunday will reach a high of 7 and a low of 5. To start the March break, have your raincoats and umbrellas ready because we'll reach a high of 12 and a low of 7. Tuesday will continue with rain at a high of 11 and a low of 6. That's your 5-day forecast. I'm Raven Benwaite. Back to you, Mehek.
That's all for news today. I'm Mehek Mazhar. See you soon.